Hello all. Well, I want to thank all the good comments on the last video, Going to the Log. If you haven't seen that video, maybe you should go take a look. Okay, and on this video, we've got some really important news that's happening in the U.S., but will eventually happen with everybody on the planet, unless we do something about it. Let me show you. Let's go to the board. So, the first tar sands in the U.S. is about ready to open. Here are three different groups of people that are trying to take actions against this tar sands mine that is going in the U.S. Now, let's go into the details. Where's the eraser? Oh, here it is. This is the part that's so frustrating. A Canadian company leased 32,000 acres of U.S. public land in Utah. So apparently Utah took away our ability to have public land and has given it over to a Canadian company who will then strip mine this whole area, take off all the trees, the parks, and the infrastructure of the public lands, and then take the money that they make off of this, and the money goes back into Canada, pretty much. So not only do we lose public lands to a private corporation, but the corporation isn't even part of the U.S. It's another country. So we're basically giving them this land that the public used to picnic on and camp on and hunt on, or whatever they wanted to do on that land. And that company will strip away everything on top, which will expose the black tar sands, which will then continuously fume. Just out of the tar sands that are exposed, fumes will come up and pollute the air, and then will repollute the air, transporting the tar sands to where it gets processed, and then will pollute the air again when we drive with it. This just can't be real. This company out of Canada, well, let me go show you, plans on spending $60 million on a PR project for the state of Utah in the U.S. And they plan on having this horrible tar sands in 2015. They will start selling the goo. Well, we're on a bike ride again today, and I came back over to see this creek to see how it's been going. You know, the little creek that we check every now and then because we're having a drought here in California in the U.S. The creek I'm about to show you usually runs to about, the end of June to all the way to the beginning of August. But here it is, May, end of May. As you can see, it's dry, completely dried up. So there are some production numbers around the world of crude oil. Let's go have a look. Let's look at some of the big oil producers. Exxon, their production is down 1.5% since 2012. Chevron's production is down 0.5% from 2012. There's more. So, Shell Oil is down 1.9%, and BP is down 2.7%. In fact, all the major oil companies are either flat or falling on their oil production. There seems to only be one company in the whole world that has increased oil production. So it looks like a company out of France called Total, South Africa, was the only one to be up in production, but you had to include natural gas and all the other things that company works to get it to go up. And as you can see, the number isn't really that big. So even if they went up quite a bit, their numbers are still pretty small, and I don't think it would help in any way solve the problem of oil supply. There's a reason these companies are having so much trouble. Let me show you. The expenses for the big major oil companies just keep going up. Here's an example. BP is going to spend $25 billion this year. Total plans on spending $37 billion this year, and ExxonMobil plans on spending $40 billion this year. But there's a real problem, isn't there? So the oil companies are coming into trouble. There's two places where they're meeting the apex. One is in how many barrels does it take to get how many barrels out. So right now, conventional oil is to about 10, takes 1 barrel to get about 10 barrels out. Some say it's down to 8. And fracking and tar sands equals about 2 to 5 barrels. So we're right close to the apex here where it takes too much oil to get any oil out. But there's another apex. So right now, a barrel of oil, they're getting about 109 to 108 out of it. Sometimes it goes a little lower, sometimes a little bit out. But we know that 120 is the limit. They can't go any higher than that, because in 2008 we had an economic crash because of the oil prices going up. If the oil prices go down, the oil companies are only going to make maybe 90 cents a barrel at best, even no revenue at all, making nothing. They just spend all this time getting oil but making nothing. So until we see oil prices go up to even above 120, will we see increased production of anything really. Now we knew this was coming because I've been doing this video for over 2 years plus. In those few years that we've been doing this video, we have seen continuous stagnant production, even though every time they discover new oil, it's such a small. Let me show you the comparison. So back when we discovered oil, the reservoirs were this big, Then they started shrinking down, and now and down, and now the reservoirs are sort of like this. And so they're trying to make it sound like all reservoirs are the same size, but all these reservoirs have been pumped pretty much dry, and we're now down to just these little tiny reservoirs where they have to frack to get the oil to come out. And of course after a year, fracking that well dies and they have to go drill more wells. Well, there's only so many of these little tiny pockets left, and as soon as they've pumped those dry, which shouldn't take more than a couple more years, there's going to be almost no production at all. Now I think we all know what that means and what's coming. The only thing we can really do is try and grow gardens, ride your bicycle, move closer to work, and start thinking about solar panels. Again, I want to thank the comments from the last video, going to the log, and the subscriptions, and the pluses and the minuses and the comments. Really appreciate it. We'll see you later.